My name is Jason Critton. I'm from Sedalia, Colorado, and I am a CJF TE AWCF.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the multi-farrier podcast.
I had a soccer coach, and he always said, we are going to be the fittest team always out there. Because in the moment, you don't want to be worried about being tired. You want to be focused on the soccer game.
Right.
Which is what's going to translate for me, hopefully, in the CJF, is that I'm not worried about being tired. I can focus on the task at hand.
And granted, he was like, get your specimens made. 3 months before you take your exam, get all your AW specimens made. And it's good to have other people putting that pressure on you as well. Sometimes if it's a single journey, and you've not got mentors that are coaching you, helping you, you kind of rest a little bit.
If you're hearing this, you are currently on the non-subscriber feed. If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link below. If you're a student, apprentice, or just find yourself in a situation where it isn't financially feasible to subscribe, please reach out to me on Facebook or through the website. The good folks at Out West Design and Fabrication are lending their support by helping us to cover your scholarship subscription. You can check out many of their incredible projects on their Facebook page. Out West Design and Fabrication, your choice for farrier rigs. Now here's a sample of this week's episode. Thank you for listening.
Most people that I know in this industry only want the best for the other people in the industry, which is a pretty cool thing.
Welcome everyone. A little shopkeeping before we start here. We are just a week away from Heartland Horseshoeing School's 30th anniversary contest and celebration. I saw the other day that the entries are officially closed for the contest, but that doesn't mean you can't come to celebrate regardless. I'm looking forward to catching up with the Gregorys and the many great folks I've met there over the years. If you're coming, I look forward to seeing you there. And now for today's conversation. When I found out I was going to be mediating a panel discussion with this gentleman as one of the speakers at this past year's convention, I knew I had my chance to finally knock him off my podcast guest hit list. Jason is one of those farriers that the Brits would refer to as being very switched on. As you will hear, he's very passionate about the craft and pursuing higher level exams. But he also rounds that out with some enviable business savvy. You will hear me refer to the first time I came into Jason's orbit at a roundtable at Summit many years ago. I left that talk with a lot of applicable information and feeling inspired by Jason's contagious excitement about our profession. I left this interview with very much the same feeling. Definitely someone I'd like to spend more time with in the future, talking shoeing and life in general. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. The first time I met you, I don't think we actually met. The first time I saw you from across the room was at a round table at Summit.
Okay.
And you did it on shoeing for different footing surfaces,
Okay,
I think, was the talk.
Yep.
And yeah, I met a lot of really cool people in that talk because we all had the same concerns and were dealing with the same things. And I have quoted you so many times with people about the aluminum shoes where they'd wear the toe down and you guys were working at the show or something.
Yep.
The horses would go lame, and it was just because of that grab bar that was the last thing standing.
Yeah.
And they were just catching in the footing.
Yep.
I don't know if we start there. Just what were some of the things that you discovered through being at that show and learning how to deal with that footing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it was around 2012, we had the opportunity to take over as the show fairs for the Colorado Horse Park.
Okay.
And it was about that same time that the Bellissimo group from Wellington had bought the Colorado Show Park, and they came in and they changed all the footing. They rebuilt all the rings, and they did an amazing job. Fixed the drainage. Drainage was always a huge thing there. We'd get some big torrential downpours, and literally you just wouldn't show for a few days because it just washed everything out. So then synthetic footing was the answer to that, which it is. Like, synthetic footing is amazing for show producers.
Right.
Because
I don't think it's ever leaving no matter what because of that.
Yeah. Yep. And so all of a sudden, and I had been around before that when it was basically they were jumping around in sand for the most part. I think At one time, there was even rubber in it, like pretty old school.
Yeah.
And so we had lamenesses and things that would happen, of course, with that. But it all changed when they added synthetic footing. And now all of a sudden, we're having all these soft tissue strains that we hadn't had before. But as a show farrier, we get to see, it was a 7-week show, 6 days a week, 7 weeks, right?
Wow.
And people have, it's changed now. People have learned, I think most people have learned that you can't go like you used to. The horses can't handle more than, a lot of people now show a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then rest their horses.
Yeah.
Right, where back in the day, they just used to just go.
Do the whole 7 weeks?
Oh, they take maybe like the middle week off.
Okay,
They do 3, take a week off, and take 3 more, and it's like, man, their horses just spent all the time at the vet. Like, it was crazy, right? Madness. But the most common thing that we would have happen to us is these horses they start having refusals. They've been there for a week and jumped around pretty good the first week, and by the second week, now you're having refusals on horses that don't refuse the jump.
Yeah.
Right? And so they'd go to the vet, and a lot of them would be sore in their neck and their withers, and then foot sore as well. They'd hoof test positive over the coffin joint. And so some of them would get injected right there at the show or whatever. And what we come to realize over the years, and it didn't take long actually, is because rapid deceleration is such a huge factor in synthetic footing. I mean, it's, in my opinion, for the guy shoeing this sport horse, it's our greatest challenge these days.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out how to keep these horses comfortable on that surface, because like you said, producers love it and it's not going away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the racetracks had it forever and they took it out because
it was just too catastrophic.
fracturing limbs, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, but one of the biggest things that happens is horses just having too much traction. And it could be something as small as just the wrong nail choice. You're having nail heads stick up.
Yes, that's
right?
a big thing for me. I feel like a reining horse farrier now because I'll
seriously.
start rasping heads off if they're protruding a little bit.
Absolutely. And it matters. All that stuff matters. And the aluminum shoe world, there's just not a lot of shoes out there that don't have a wear plate.
Yeah.
And the most commonly used ones do have a wear plate. And we would see a lot of hunters, especially, that they've just worn through the aluminum and they're into this steel wear plate.
Which
and now,
just becomes this flat break at the front, right?
Yeah, it's just a toe grab at that point.
Yeah.
And so we've had a lot of luck with just getting those horses out of that shoe, maybe add a leather pad, but allowing them to slide, get back to a little bit of a slide phase.
Right.
Of course, they're probably getting some anti-inflammatories on top of that, but get them back in the ring and comfortable again and not having refusals and going back to the show. Like that, it's like a day in and day out thing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to be able to see that kind of turnaround.
Crazy. And then just early on, and unfortunately sometimes even still, I think some guys they want to ignore it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we'd have horses show up to the horse show shod and concave.
Yes.
And literally within a few days, the clinches are standing straight up, right?
The
Pop
shoe is
clinches because there's that much
Right.
torque on the shoe.
Okay.
Yeah. And so beautiful work, and have to take it off and change it out. So you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. But the horses, there's no way they're going to get through the show. And there's so much invested. These people, my wife shows, and I know what it costs to go to the horse show. It's a lot. And when your horse is lame, sometimes you get a vet note or something, but sometimes you don't. And you're not going to get your stall fees back. You're not going to get your office fees back. You know what I mean? So it's a huge responsibility for us as farriers to do everything we can to set them up for the environment they're going to go show in.
Right. Now, back to that topic of the slide, what have you done? What do you think you've changed that you have seen work?
Yeah, it's a controversial topic, obviously.
Yeah.
Some guys believe that less surface area against the synthetic footing is better.
Right.
And I guess I could agree with that to a certain point, but less surface or less section to me means it's going to get more sink into that footing, which to me is, again, they're sticking. So I typically go with a little wider section. And I mean, for a while it was plain stamps.
Okay.
But we show a lot of horses. And even though I have guys that can help make the plain stamps, that's a daunting task.
Yeah.
You know, a bunch of 3/8 plain stamps to go on all your horses. If you're shoeing 8 a day or 10 a day, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just a lot.
Right.
If you don't want to have a life after work, I guess it's fine. But,
Yeah.
So anyways, and there was, Visani had some great shoes. They do have some great shoes. French company that are plain stamp, 5/16 plain stamp shoes. And we were importing some of those initially and using them. And we played with a lot of different stuff. And to be honest, now I use usually a 3/4 fuller shoe, but mechanics. Use a lot of mechanics, you know, like big hammer rolls and rockers, French rockers, something like that. Just trying to get them to be able to push through that surface a little bit. If we can do anything to engage the slide phase.
Right.
And a leather pad seems to help.
Right. Yeah, that was something I found too.
Yeah, or it didn't have to be leather. It could be plastic. Just something so your frog's not giving them traction. They're not getting the penetration.
Yeah.
You know, keeping them on top of that surface a little bit. Yeah. But I'd like to say I have all the answers. It's a tough deal.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge challenge for all of us.
But it's interesting, your vantage point of seeing the horses at the show, you would see so many different styles of shoeing, and then what either worked or didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And horses are amazing creatures. I mean, some of them, they're just so stoic.
Yeah.
They'll jump through fire and they'll just keep going and going. And then you have one that's not that way, and a little fragile, and just as much as a little coffin joint inflammation, and they're like, man, I am not jumping.
I'm tapping out here.
I'm tapping out, and I can't blame them.
Yeah.
So anyways, and that's a whole, we could spend a day talking about synthetic surfaces. And,
Right.
And hopefully, and I think there's been work done, there's been some white papers written, and the FEI is trying to somehow regulate it, but they're a long ways from it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done still. You're right.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go right back to the beginning. How did you become a horseshoer?
I was fortunate enough, I was raised by my grandparents, and my granddad and his brother had racehorses. They ran quarter horses.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so I grew up around the racehorses, loved it, absolutely loved the racehorses. And at age 13, I became an exercise rider. And so I'd spend my summers at the racetrack. I'd get on my first horse at 5 o'clock. And we'd ride till 10. I could get on anywhere from 18 to 20 horses every morning.
Holy jeez.
Yeah. I'd literally they'd have them saddled, standing at the rail, and I would pop off one, hop on the next. And that was how I got started. And so I'd live in a camp trailer at the racetrack when school was out of session. And so I'd be done at 10 o'clock, and I'm like, I have nothing to do the rest of the day, right? Hanging out. So I started hanging out around the horseshoers, and didn't take long, and they let me start wearing an apron, and that was cool. And that's really where it started. And so I would ride in the mornings, and then I'd go pull and finish and stuff for them in the afternoons.
Wow.
So I started when I was 13, and then I grew up actually in Utah, rural America, and I had never really been around like a true professional farrier. Most guys, it was more of a seasonal thing, honestly.
Oh,
the
really?
winters were hard and long, and so a lot of guys had a second job in the winter.
Right.
Especially track farriers. The racetracks were all in that area. We were all closed out. Even like your recreational riders, like you get through hunting season and the lights went out. And so all these guys had other jobs. Like I really hadn't been around like a true professional farrier. So even all through high school, I was learning to kind of shoe my own. I shod families' horses and shooting for friends and stuff, and it was bad. It was all really bad.
Yeah. You don't know it at the time, though.
No, I think I knew it. It was pretty bad. I was pretty good if I'd ride them until they were footsore, because then they were like out of foot, so all you had to do is nail some protection on there. You didn't actually have to trim them, and that wasn't so bad.
Right.
Anyways, but then some of the guys that I had kind of learned from or got started with, they were like, you really ought to get an education in this and learn the bookwork.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So in 1998, I had saved up from riding, and I went to Oklahoma Farriers College in Sperry, Oklahoma, Bud Beeston School.
Okay.
And I signed up for the 4-week course. Yeah, I figured 4 weeks I should have this.
You'll have all the book
I'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
So I did it, and it was funny because the first day of school, I shod 3 horses all the way around by myself. And they realized pretty quick, this guy's been doing this a little bit. He's terrible at it, but he's a slave. Like, we can work it,
Right.
you know? And one of my mentors, as a young man, he said, you can't call yourself a farrier until you've shot 1,000 horses.
Okay.
And that's actually probably a pretty good thing, right?
You've learned a lot.
Like 1,000, that's getting your feet wet. You know what I mean? And so I kept track of them, every one of them. I was
really?
Like, yeah, so I went to shoeing school. Like, I shot 33 horses in shoeing school. You know what I mean? And trimmed like 80 or something, you know? So I kept track. So I did keep track till I got to that 1,000 mark, because I was like, okay, now I can call myself a horseshoer.
Right.
But that's how I got started. But I never thought I was going to do it as a career. So actually, I went to shoeing school. The day after high school graduation, I was on a plane, never been on a plane before, flew to Oklahoma. And I remember my cousin picked me up. He lived there, and spent the weekend with him. And he hauled me out just outside of Tulsa. It was a few hours from his house. Drops me off at the gate. The gate's locked. I got this old plaid suitcase, no wheels. Thinking back, I'm getting old, but anyways, the gate's locked. So I'm just sitting out there for 2 hours before they open the gate. And I'm like fish out of water, big time.
What am I doing?
What am I doing with myself? Anyway, long story short, I started school that fall, and then was shoeing horses. I just thought, well, man, I could shoe horses through college and not have to have a real job, and it would work great. And that's pretty much what happened. I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and I never had a real job. I just had a little clientele and shod some horses, graduated with no debt, and it was all cool, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I got out of school, and I really didn't really want to be an engineer. Like, it really wasn't my jam.
Okay.
I didn't want to sit in an office. That was it. I love the systems process of engineering, and I love systems. I like how things work. And
Okay. Yeah.
but I just realized, like, this isn't really what I want to do. I don't want to sit in an office.
Right.
And so I had an opportunity to move to Denver. I'd been shoeing about 6 years at that point. I stuck around where I'd gone to school in Utah. I went to Utah State, and I stuck around there for a little while and shod horses, and actually taught high school. Yep, I taught a high school pre-engineering class. I got hired on. They lost their teacher halfway through the school year. So I did get a teaching endorsement because, again, I didn't think I could shoe horses. I thought it would be a summertime thing. So I thought, I'll teach school maybe and have my summers off and I can shoe horses. And, right? Just clueless, man.
Well,
just totally
looking back.
clueless. Yeah. I look at these guys now that's like, man, you've got an apprenticeship? That is amazing.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I would have died for that. Right? Some direction. Anyways, so I did teach high school, and that was like, I would watch the clock from the time the bell rang at 8 o'clock. I was like, what time can I get out of here? This is painful.
I've been in jobs like that.
Yeah. And I'd go shoot 2 or 3 horses after work and make more than I'd made all day. I'm like, this is crazy. So a couple of years of that, and then I moved to Colorado, and that's when I was like, okay, I want to do this. Lord willing, this is what I want to do. And it's funny because I packed up and moved over there and didn't know a single person that owned a horse or just nothing.
What brought you over there in the first place?
That's a good question.
If you would like to hear this episode in its entirety, please subscribe using the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening.